Hello and welcome to my channel, Wolf-Aqua, your channel about horticulture, aquaponics and aquaculture. And today it's more a horticultural video. So we were interviewing Dry Hydroponics from the Netherlands. Dry Hydroponics is a supplier of raft systems, and we were asking them all kind of questions about their systems, but also about what you need to consider if you want to start an urban farming project. So we visited them in the Netherlands, close to Den Haag, in their research and developmental greenhouse. And there we interviewed Maurice van der Knaap, one of the co-founders of Dry Hydroponics. If you have any questions about their systems, I put for you their contact details in the info box of this video. If you have any questions about this video or any feedback, just use the comment section below the video. I really hope you enjoyed this interview. I think you really can gain quite some valuable insight in the horticultural industry from that interview, and I would be very, very happy if you subscribe to my channel. And now enjoy the video. Alright, so welcome on my channel, and today we have an exciting visit for us, and we are here in the Netherlands and we're visiting Dry Hydroponics. And I'm having here, my guest is Maurice van der Knaap, and welcome on my channel.
Nice to be here.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
cool.
I prepared some questions for you, and let's say, who are you and where are we sitting here?
Yeah. So we are sitting here in the test and demo greenhouse of Dry Hydroponics. Here we develop our deep flow system, Dry Hydroponics. But myself, I'm a son of a grower, but I saw my parents working so hard that I run away from the business and I end up being educated as an industrial designer. But from that point of view, I returned back in the business, but that not from the grower side, but more from the technology side. So after a few years working for greenhouse builders, I, together with my business partner, established Dry Hydroponics. And over the last 15 years, we have a lot of fun, try to make something great out of this.
Oh, nice, nice. So how do you call the system? You call them raft systems, deep flow system, deep water culture. There are so many names. I have the feeling it's always kind of describing the same thing. So how would you name it?
You are quite right. So in general, a lot of people call hydroponic systems the whole thing that is not in the ground. I think that's a little bit not precise enough. So what we see in vegetable production in leafy greens, we see roughly soil, NFT, nutrient film technology, and we see deep water culture. Yeah. And we think we are part of the deep water culture. So it means it's 25 centimeters of water, big pools all over a project with floating elements on top of it, rafts. So we sometimes call it a deep water system, sometimes we call it a floating raft systems. All right. It's fine. So it's the big difference is when NFT, you really talk about a small water medium, and the water is not taking care of other things except for bringing water and nutrients, while with the deep flow system, it's really also the logistics and it's the whole buffer of the system. So for me, that's more important than how you name it.
This system, you have like a nice stable water temperature compared to NFT systems, because
everything is more stable. So we see temperature, oxygen levels, nutrient levels, biolife levels. Everything is more stable because of the volume. So it's not because we are better, it's because a bigger volume gives you a stabler, more stable situation. So that's one of the reasons. It's not the only reason, but it was for us one of the most important reasons to start developing based on the deep flow system. In the end, deep flow systems exist since the 60s of the previous century, like NFT systems. So we don't talk about new technology. It's already there for 60, 70, 80 years. And in 2005, 6 and 7, when we did research ourselves, we recognized the two totally different options. You also have aeroponic, but for us that's too risky. It's not reliable for your customer, it's too complex. So we looked at NFT and deep flow systems as the most realistic ones to work on, and we choose for robustness. And because of the logistics that's included, we choose to further on developing the deep flow system.
Nice thing is, if in an NFT system also the pump fails, you have half an hour time in a hot summer day and you can throw away your plants. If here a pump fails, I
yeah,
think they survive longer.
So if it was a matter of one pump failing, you can have backup systems. The robustness of deep flow systems is also the robustness of the slow response of everything. So it's also the buffer that is even more important. So again, modern NFT systems, they don't have those weaknesses you talk about. They solved it with technology, but even then they are less robust because the volume is smaller, so it's all more sensitive.
Your system, dry hydroponics, but it sounds a little bit paradox because it's actually, hydroponics is just giving everything the plant needs with water, so with hydro, with water, but you call it dry hydroponics. Where does the name come from?
First of all, we choose that name that people ask questions about it, and it still works after 10 years, 15 years. It's not extremely big discovery, but we find out that most hydroponics were too wet. And if you, especially when you look at leafy greens, if you look at tomato growing, they also call it hydroponics, so on a rock wool block or on a cocos block, they also don't put the plant in it, they put it on top of it. Because your roots are from somewhere from the dry area, the stem, they have to go in the root zone, the wet area. And you cannot do that in 1 millimeter. So you need, the plant needs an, how do you call that? It needs some zone where it gets slowly wetter. That's the first thing we thought about when we were working on it. And we did a bunch of tests, especially with butterhead. And we came to the conclusion that if you grow a butterhead, let's say very wet, soaking wet, it makes another kind of root than when you make it in the soil. And we were wondering why was it happening, and we found out that when you put the growing medium above the water instead of in the water, and that's why we call dry hydroponics, you see another root development, because then with irrigation from the top, you keep the growing medium wet, but never as wet as soaking wet. So it's more like rain in the morning. So the plant has enough water, but it recognizes during the day that it dries out. So it recognizes during the day that it has to go deeper in the ground for making roots. And that signal to the plant, that seems to be very crucial. And that's why we call it dry hydroponics, because we find out that the missing link was overhead irrigation. And the missing link was that don't make it too easy. You can give your kids an ice cream. You can also say, you can give your kids an ice cream, but you can also say, wash my car first, then you get an ice cream. It's the same calories, but it's a different kit. And that's the same with lettuce. So never treat a plant wrong. You don't keep it dry when it needs water. That's not what we say. But you can also spoil it, and we have to avoid that you spoil it, and that's why we developed the concept of dry. So keeping the growing medium above the water any time of the growing cycle, that's why we call it dry hydroponics.
Okay, but so if you have a full-grown lettuce, do you still need to irrigate from above until the end? Or the end?
Good question. No, we irrigate from the top as long as the leaves cannot manage their microclimate.
All right.
So let's assume you have 600 watts of energy hitting 1 square meter of surface. That 600 watts has to disappear. That has to be cooled away. So one thing is wind, so by replacement of that air and bring fresh air in there. In the big greenhouse, that's challenging. The second thing is evaporation of the leaves. Now if there are small leaves because the plants are young, they cannot do it. And the third thing is evaporation of something else. That's the fourth one as well, that's radiation. But the evaporation of something else in field grown, it's the evaporation of the soil. Soil is drying out when the sun is there. So that is actually cooling down the environment. And we do the same with dry hydroponics. So as soon as we see white space between the leaves, we still help to manage the climate with overhead irrigation. As soon as the plants are covering the surface, we don't need to do it anymore.
All right. Nice.
And that's roughly on 1/3 of your growing surface you need to irrigate, 2/3 you don't need to do anything.
All right. That's nice. So just for the stars, and once they are kind of developed, then they are on their own.
And for a huge part, it's based on radiation and wind speed, so it's predictable. It's not that hard to learn.
All right. And for what type of plants would you recommend such a system?
Everything, yes, good question. Because a lot of people ask all kind of products. So we can do cauliflowers, we can do broccoli, we can do Chinese cabbage, but in general those growing cycles are too long. So yes, you can grow them fantastically. Yes, it's super sustainable, but there is no business case. And let's be honest, a grower has to make a living. So what we see in general is that everything that grows between, let's say, 3 to 8 weeks makes sense. And it can be a tulip, it can be spring onions, it can be lettuce, it can be arugula, it can be bok choy, it can be whatever. All those crops between the 3 and the 8 weeks make sense.
Yeah, so you have a kind of a very fast rotation on your square meter.
And that's exactly what it is, because of that fast rotation, you benefit maximum of the logistics that's all in this system. It's a floating system. It means that you can go through your project, through your greenhouse, with hardly no extra technology, but it's a little bit of pity if you don't benefit from it. So if you, for example, you can grow strawberries on this, but strawberries has to be picked
twice, 3 times a week.
Or even more. Yeah. So and then the logistics is too demanding. So you make walking ways between it. And if you make very narrow ponds, it's become too expensive. So you want to focus on efficient ponds, as big as possible, and that comes with efficient logistics. Once every 2 or 3 weeks you want to move the stuff to your project. If you move once a year, you don't benefit from it. If you move it every 3 days, you get crazy of all the logistics.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So the logistics is more demanding than what you can grow. We do tomatoes on this for fun. But it's completely nuts if you look at the business case.
Okay, I got it. Let's talk about the system a little bit. Do you actually need to aerate the water to have always enough oxygen levels in the water?
Yeah, most other deep flow systems, they need to aerate. I'm proud to say that 95% of our customers do not aerate the water, and we fix that by making the water move every hour for at least 10 minutes in combination with the raft design. So we made air pockets in the bottom of the raft design. That's one of our patterns we have developed over the last years. And together with that together with that water movement, we achieve a very reasonable oxygen amount. Still, higher oxygen is an insurance, so it's higher oxygen is safer, let's say it that way. So 5% of our customers, the real, let's say, Formula 1 kind of growers, they add a little bit of extra oxygen, and there are several technologies to do that. But we don't do it. Here we aerate not at all.
All right, that's nice.
It's also still our goal. So the fact that we try to build a system that is robust. That's the reason why we choose the deep flow above NFT. But we also want to be robust in technology. So in our ideal project, on 1 hectare, we have 1 pump, and that's all the technology we have. Okay, we still need pH control, and still we need some logistics around it. But in the ideal picture, less is more.
So 1 pump per hectare. That's nice.
Yeah, right now we are pretty close, but we still need pH controls and things like that, and that are still sensible equipment.
And so how many times per day or per week do you circulate the water?
Every hour for 10 minutes.
Every hour for 10 minutes?
Yeah. So if we do a project here in the Netherlands, or in Tennessee, or in Seoul, or in Kazakhstan, or in Finland, or in Ghana, we mix the water for 10 minutes per hour, 24 hours a day.
That is enough to get the whole water body mixed once, or is it just only the 10% of the water body that get mixed?
Now, the fact that we mix for 10 minutes is not focusing on getting all the water through a pump, or to a filter system, or to whatever. That's totally not our goal. Our goal is to have uniformity in the water. And what we see, if we mix 10 minutes per hour, the way we have designed the mixing pipes in the pond, is that we can guarantee 95% uniformity all over the project. So if you have, so we built 6 ponds on one pump, because the pump is running constantly, 10 minutes this pond, 10 minutes that pond, 10 minutes this way it goes on. Yeah. And by doing this 10 minutes, we know for sure that within 95% all spots of the project will have the same temperature, pH, biolife and EC levels.
Well, that's good.
And that's the goal for the mixing. In the meanwhile, of course, you need a reasonable oxygen level and a healthy biolife. But that comes with uniformity. As soon as you're uniform, you know that if you measure at one point, it will be okay everywhere. And we never see oxygen drops or strange biolife if we manage this. It goes wrong when we switch the pump off for 2 or 3 days.
All right.
So then we still okay for 1 or 2 days, but somewhere the 3rd or the 4th days the oxygen disappears, biolife gets screwed up, and then you're in trouble.
So when we're talking about biolife, do you actually use any kind of disinfection unit like ozone or UV light here to get the biolife under control, or you just let the biolife?
A good question. Same answer as the previous one. 95% of our customers are not using any filtration at all. Nice. And 5% are using technologies. The hard thing about biolife is that we don't know how to measure it properly. So you can do a DNA test on your roots, but you will something different than on the raft. You will find something different than on the water. You will find something different at the water line on the plastic on the liner. You will find something different at the bottom of the liner. So biolife is it's like a forest. It's in the top of the trees you have a biolife, near the water lines you have biolife, and on the top of the hill you have biolife, but it's one forest. So we have to be I would love to understand biolife better, but we just don't know. Our focus is stability. And our focus is looking at the roots, and as long as we see that the roots continue to grow, it's fine. In general, we see climate stress as a bigger disturber of your issues with your roots and with your biolife than the biolife itself. So our direction of solving root-related problems is more in climate management than in disinfection of the water.
All right. How would you describe is a healthy root looking?
Depends on the variety, but for a lettuce root, we're looking at them for 15 years, when it keeps on growing straight on.
And the color should be nice and white, or can it be slightly brown?
I really don't care about color. Right. So, because with more biolife in your water, you have less white roots. That's roughly what it is.
All right.
But we know that we can have terrifically nice, healthy lettuce growing with roots over a meter, looking yellowish, but completely healthy. So for me, a healthy root is not the color, but it's the way how it develops. So if it keeps on growing straight on, in general, it's a good sign. When you have shorter roots and a lot of branches, then something happened. And that can be, our industry blames that to the water, we blame it to the climate.
All right. Okay.
So we think looking at the roots is more telling you what your climate was the last month than what your water was the last month.
All right, that's good to know. Do you actually exchange the water, because then you would also exchange biolife, or you just tap up the water and measure what kind of nutrients you have in there?
Yeah, so we are actually quite, afraid is not the right word, we are not so happy with replacing the water. So in general, we try to use this as long as possible. In our own ponds over here, the longest time we used the water was over 6 years.
Wow.
And for us, the only reason to replace it is when the sodium or the zinc level goes too high. Mm-hmm. We have some sodium here because we're close to the coast, so even in the rainwater we have a little bit of sodium, and the fertilizers always comes with a little bit of sodium. But in this greenhouse our biggest risk is zinc. So the
zinc comes from the trace elements?
And the zinc is coming from the truss.
Oh really?
Yeah. So we should have built different than with this concrete. So no, there is always a source of a pollution in any system. In general, rainwater is the best start, and a proper built system is the best start, and an aluminium gutted greenhouse is the best start. But even then, you have some kind of a pollution, and then when that exceeds it, you have to replace the water. Yeah. But for BioLife and for other reasons, we never replace the water.
All right, I think that's also very nice because that's then you keep the nutrients as long as possible in the system running.
It's the most sustainable way. If we have to replace the water, we still don't throw away the whole pond. So because let's say you have a project with 6 ponds, then and you at a certain time your zinc level is getting too high. What you do then is putting the water of one pond into the 5 others, and they can still grow in it because you do that in time, and you put fresh water in that first pond. So in the end, you only have to throw away, let's say, 50 centimeters of one pond. So in bigger projects, your recirculation is close to 95–85%.
That's very good. So you said bigger projects. So how big can you actually build those systems?
So how big can these projects be? Any size you like, depending other things than the technology of the system. So we have built ponds up to 175 meters length. We have built ponds up to 16 meters wide and combinations of that. So one pond can be extremely huge. 6 ponds can be connected to one pump. And you can do multiple pump sets in a project. So from that point of view, it's endless. If you look at logistics, there seems to be some logic around 5 hectares. If you go bigger, you have to, with your forklift, you can load 1 truck at a time, not 3. So at a certain time you need a second forklift, and that's what I call logistics. So in a greenhouse you can do double your logistics, but it's better to build a second greenhouse block of 5 hectares. Right. So there is some logic in 5 hectares from logistics. Another question is the climate in the greenhouse. Here in the Netherlands, Germany, Denmark, you have very mild summers. And then the size of the project doesn't matter. You can build as big as you like. But as soon as you go more south, you have to be aware of harsher summer climates, and that restricts the dimensions of your greenhouse. Still, you can go big, but you need cable ends in the middle of it for extra ventilation and stuff like that. So then sometimes a little bit smaller projects makes more sense. But from dry hydroponics point of view, from this kind of technology, 5 hectares is fine.
So you can have also these systems outdoors, or do you need a greenhouse, or do you recommend a greenhouse above it?
In the end, dry hydroponics is a cultivation system, like soil, like a roller bench system, like NFT, like whatever. And you can use that technologies in different climate systems. Climate system can be open field, can be a tunnel greenhouse, can be a low-tech greenhouse, can be a mid-tech greenhouse, can be a high-tech greenhouse, can be a vertical farm. So technology-wise, you can put it everywhere. Business-wise, open field is too risky, because with open field you still have to invest in the growing system. Yeah. But one night with hail, and still your crop is gone. So your risk profile is wrong. Another thing is you build a system like this also to produce in the toughest time of the year. And that means that in general, all our customers are mid-high tech or vertical farms. Even low-tech tunnel greenhouses, it would not be my advice to build a system like this in it.
All right, okay. And can you combine those kind of technology together with aquaponics, so this fish and plant thing?
For sure. For sure. So there's a whole interview to talk about aquaponics. But in the end, for a hydroponic system, an aquaponics is a source of nutrients. Yeah. So if you can manage that, why not? If you want to do 2 jobs instead of 1, while 1 is already complex, good luck. Yep. It would be not my decision, but we have a few customers that are growing with aquaponics technology integrated in the hydroponic solution. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, because in my channel I talk a lot about aquaponics,
Yeah.
and that's why it's, I think, very interesting for my viewers to see if they can potentially could combine that with an aquaponics system.
Yeah.
So what would you say is a recommended minimum level or size of such a system to become just profitable? That a grower can have a
So actually it's a very complex question. Maybe you hear some background right now because we are irrigating one of our young plants at the other spans, because the radiation is calculated. We have reached so many joules, so time to irrigate. Minimum size, yeah. If you want to be a commercial grower, you grow efficient. That's your goal. If you want to supply to the Edeka or to the Aldi, you need to supply distribution centers, truckloads. You need to bear 12 months per year with the constant production. Then I would say a minimum size is at least a hectare or more, and you grow one product. Myself, as being in development all my life and thinking also out of the box, I'm also a believer of smaller concepts, but you cannot do that in a traditional food chain. And then your approach could be more like a garden center. I'm not sure if that's easy in Europe, but we see on remote areas in Canada, already we have a few customers over there who are doing this on 300, 400, 500 square meter scale. And they grow for the local population, and they grow 50 varieties at the same time. So don't talk about labor, of course that's a lot of labor. Don't talk about the product price, produce price is high, but their competition is coming from far away with big logistic costs. And then it can work. So we have commercial successful customers from, let's say, 500 square meter up to multiple times 5 hectares.
All right, okay. Yeah. So what would be, so let's say you have young entrepreneurs, they really want to go into this urban farming or farming in general kind of approach. What advice could you give to those people before they start? Don't do it.
No, I like to do it, and I'm European, and I don't say I'm Dutch. I'm European. I feel myself European, and Europe has a big. We have good food from all angles all the time. So if we can make urban farming fly over here, we are quite unique. Let's start with commercial farming first. I think if we want to feed the world, we need commercial scale farms. We need supermarkets. That's the only way to do it. So urban farming is not the solution to feed the world. That has another job to do. For commercial farmers, I would really hope that European Union on one side and retailers on the other side would evaluate the sustainability of this way of growing. So right now we have organic in Europe, and organic means growing in soil. So that is limiting on a lot of sustainability options. So growing in soil is not by itself sustainable. And we also have to be efficient. So I like to call myself an eco-modernist. That means we have to maintain our welfare on a smaller plot of impact, so we can leave more to nature. And from that point of view, I think greenhouse grown, hydroponically grown is a very important sustainable future walk we have to go through. So referring back to your question, what should commercial growers think about up front is, do you have your sales organized to appreciate all the benefits you are doing? There's nothing cheaper than growing an open field and importing it from Spain in the winter. That's the cheapest way to go. So what we are doing is not by itself cheaper. We try to do something better for the environment and for the world. You need a good customer first. So that's my advice first. The second one is focus on the crop that the people already buy. So don't start to grow fancy stuff in numbers that outreach all the thing they are eating, because that means from day one you will producing too much, and that's not sustainable, and that's bad for your business. So grow what you guarantee can be sold from day one, and start with putting some niche products on your system when you are up and running. So that is one. And if you are on a commercial scale, great to start small because you don't want to produce too much, but your picture must be 5 hectares.
All right. Okay.
Because if you want to be in the market with the Edekas and the Aldis, you have to be efficient. Don't blame them, it's how the system works. So that means you have to work in 5 hectare blocks. If you want to be, if your passion is more in urban farming, and a big part of my heart is there as well, you can never beat the industrialized growers. And I also I'm not in the school of people who say that commercial scale is bad. It's totally not. They are very efficient with everything they use, also very sustainable. But if you want to do urban farming, you do that, I think, for another purpose. First of all, it is potentially a way to take out the packaging, but that means that people have to come with their own packaging to get it. So you have to be real local. The second thing is, local urban farming can be a way to be on a zero waste policy, but it means you have to grow what your buyers in your neighborhood wants to buy. So you need to be very flexible
and diverse.
But that also makes the job more interesting. So I think the third thing for urban growers is create human-friendly jobs. So that's the third one. Focus on that as well. And I'm convinced you can do it. But keep in mind, you have to sell it for 2 times the retail price. Because you're doing a lot of things different, and you create a lot of new values, like human-friendly jobs, no packaging, but it comes with a cost. And that's the challenge in Europe. In Europe right now, everybody wants food for the lowest price. And I don't blame them.
Especially in my country.
Not only Germany, also the Netherlands, also Denmark, also England. You can only spend your euro once, so it fully makes sense. But sustainability and a local, global, local human-friendly jobs are not necessarily the cheapest way to do it. In the long term, for the whole value of the economy, for the social structure of a country, I think it's a way to go. But be aware of it, that you have to sell it for double the price.
Double the price.
Go in Europe. One step to that. In the United States, we already exploring this potential. And there we see, because of the distance from growing fields to the supermarket is so big, if you grow in California and you have to bring it to New York, that's another cup of tea than getting it from Spain to Berlin.
True.
And that's really at least 3 times more costly. So in the US you already see that growing local becomes even cost effective compared to scale. But we can never grow everything local for everybody. You cannot feed a city like New York with local produce. Don't even think about it. But for the social jobs, for the awareness, for reducing packaging, it's a fantastic way to do. That's also the reason why we support it as much as we can.
Yeah, I saw on your page a section called Local Dutch. I think that was going to the direction of urban farming. Can you tell us something about the Local Dutch initiative?
Yeah, so I'm one of the founders of Dry Hydroponics and one of the owners, but I started a Sunday company, I call it, in my spare time, and that's Local Dutch, and that tries to focus on that market. There's even one thing more behind it. Worldwide, the average age of growers is...
Let me guess, it's like, well, in Europe I would say it's like 40 to 50.
At least, I think it's closer to 50 than to 40.
Right.
In Japan it's above 70.
Ooh, wow.
In America it's above 55. That means not long from today we're running out of growers. Interesting. Worries me a little bit. So no growers, no food. It doesn't mean that growers and farmers have the right to demand what they want. That's not what I try to say. But we need people who are willing to produce. First of all, give them a reason to start in this business. But the other thing is also we have to embrace more young people to step in this interesting business, in this interesting, spending your lifetime for. And I think with nice modern technology, with human-friendly jobs, we can do it. So that is one. Local Dutch is try to achieve that. Nice, interesting jobs with career opportunities. In the meanwhile, generating more awareness where food is coming from, why we have to be careful with our growers and farmers. We need them, not today, but we need them 10 years from now. Today we still have enough of them. And I put it in another company because it's almost the opposite of thinking compared to my traditional customer base. My traditional customer base, 2 hectares, 5 hectares efficiency monocrop, and Local Dutch will be 1,000 square meters, 50 varieties, a shop in front of your greenhouse, and sell everything local.
Yeah, very diverse then for the customer needs.
Our goal is 0 waste. Yeah. That means you can only grow what you can 100% guarantee sold at the end of the growing cycle. That's not how an iceberg grower thinks. That's not how a tomato grower thinks. They produce as efficient as possible. That's also a business model, but it's another model. With Local Dutch, we do it the other way around.
I will put you the Local Dutch link in the description underneath the video, so you can also check out what he is doing there in that regard. So, where do you see Dry Hydroponics in 5 years from now? If you can forecast a little bit.
I cannot forecast, but we have targets. So we are quite well established in the United States because right now there's a lot of greenhouse development going on over there. The US by itself has only 1/3 of the total greenhouses we have in the Netherlands. So don't even think about compared to the rest of Europe. So there's a lot of potential over there. And we are there since 10 years now, and we are quite successful over there. We also will work on making our bases in Europe bigger. We have a project in Spain, we have a project in Italy, we have a project in the UK, but it's all one. We have one in Germany, one in Poland, one in Denmark. But it is more important that we get a few more of them. But the business case in Europe for food producers is tough. So we have to be aware of it. And we gave ourselves the target that we want to be active in at least 3 continents in the next 4 years from now. So we made these goals during the COVID pandemic by saying, let's say we want to be active in 3 continents within 5 years. So we also established a cooperation in South Korea right now, and we have our first project running over there as well. We already have a few of them in Australia, but it doesn't scale up. So we don't do it the right way yet. So we want to be in at least 3 continents because we never know where the robustness of our company is coming from. We need to be in business every month, otherwise we cannot pay the paychecks. So that's important. And yeah, is America the place to be for the next 10 years? I don't know. Is Europe the place to be? I'm quite convinced, but you never know. Look what's happening right now in the world. Same story with Asia. So we want to be diverse. That's step 1. Step 2, we are in the middle of a transition by using more sustainable materials for our projects. That's almost finalized. So we used to make our rafts from styrofoam. We make them now from EPP. That's 100% recyclable material. So that's a very important step. We are in the middle of that process. The third goal we have is that we are doing right now head lettuce and baby leaf, and we also try to go into the spring onions, garlic, and leek. And there's one more thing. Peat beats everything, so we still use a little bit of grown medium, and peat moss is by far the most successful. But in the long term, we don't want to. First of all, we don't want to depend on peat. It becomes a reliability issue. The second thing, it's environmental a product with issues. I think it's still not bad compared to other growing medias, but we need a growing media that is without bad habits, let's say that way. But also the reliability of getting access to it worldwide will be a challenge. So the fourth reason is, can we find a way to have the same results with less environmental impact? And peat is one of the main topics on that.
Well, to have a different kind of substrate to grow your plants in.
Yeah. So last year we did a test with 75 different growing medias and different mixtures. And we had results, but peat was the winner.
Ah, all right.
So maybe we should be okay with 80% or 90%, or maybe we have to keep on looking. Our philosophy is to keep on looking.
Well, that's good. I mean, it's good that you actually also actively push forward to more sustainability.
That's I name it now as the fourth reason, but it should be reason number 1, 2, and 3. So sustainability, that's also our robustness. Don't throw away your water. Keep the technology simple. That's all also driven by sustainability.
All right, nice. So one more question, and it's a broad question. Do you think indoor farming will replace greenhouses one day in the future?
No, it's like greenhouses don't replace open field farming. Indoor farming will not replace greenhouses. So for specific crops in specific situations, I'm a really big fan of indoor farming. But I'm still also a big fan of greenhouses. So it depends on the crop, depends on where you are in the world, you have to make your decisions. I would say do the calculations, and I think indoor farming is still quite challenging.
All right. Well, thank you for this nice interview, for this nice insight of your system and your perspective on the growing sector now in the world. And thanks a lot.
Thank you very much for asking.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.